Hello everyone. Hope everyone is doing fantastic. Welcome back to the Power of Listening, the channel to learn, grow, and upgrade yourself. So now we enjoyed the first section of Who Moved My Cheese, where we saw Hem and Haw, Sniff and Scurry, all of them found Cheese Station C. After they found a station full of cheese, kind of routine sets in for them. Getting up every morning, heading towards the cheese station, enjoying the cheese every day. Isn't this so familiar with our lifestyle? We get up every morning, freshen up, go to work, enjoy the daily work at our office, and return back by the evening. Likewise, same routine sets in for Hem and Haw, but after a while, a different routine sets in for them. So what do you think can be the different routine? Don't you think we get automated for some work? We become lazy, start pushing the snooze button every morning to wake up a little late. For that, we need to leave our house a little late, knowing that nothing gonna happen if we are gonna arrive 10 minutes more late. In the same manner, Hem and Haw get up each day a little late, just a little slower, and walk towards the cheese station C, since they knew where the cheese was now and how to get there. They had no idea where the cheese came from or who put it there. They just assumed it would be there. As soon as Hem and Haw arrived at cheese station C each morning, they settled in and made themselves at home. They hung up their jogging suits, put away their running shoes, and put on their slippers. They were becoming more comfortable since they found the cheese. "This is great," Hem said. "There's enough cheese here to last us forever." The little people felt happy and successful and thought they were now secure. It wasn't long before Hem and Haw regarded the cheese they found at cheese station C as their cheese. It was such a large store of cheese that they eventually moved their homes to be closer to it and built a social life around it. To make themselves feel more at home, Hem and Haw decorated the walls with sayings and even drew pictures of cheese around them, which made them smile. One of the pictures read, "Having cheese makes you happy." Having cheese makes you happy. Sometimes Hem and Haw would take their friends by to see their pile of cheese at cheese station C and point to it with pride, saying, "Pretty nice cheese, huh?" Sometimes they shared it with their friends and sometimes they didn't. "We deserve this cheese," Hem said. "We certainly had to work long and hard enough to find it." He picked up a nice fresh piece and ate it. Afterward, Hem fell asleep, as he often did. Every night, the little people would waddle home full of cheese, and every morning they would confidently return for more. This went on for quite some time. After a while, Hem's and Haw's confidence grew into the arrogance of success. Soon they became so comfortable they didn't even notice what was happening. As time went on, Sniff and Scurry continued their routine. They arrived early each morning and sniffed and scratched and scurried around cheese station C, inspecting the area to see if there had been any changes from the day before. Then they would sit down to nibble on the cheese. One morning, they arrived at cheese station C and discovered there was no cheese. They weren't surprised, since Sniff and Scurry had noticed the supply of cheese had been getting smaller every day. They were prepared for the inevitable and knew instinctively what to do. They looked at each other, removed the running shoes they had tied together and hung conveniently around their necks, put them on their feet and laced them up. The mice did not overanalyze things. To the mice, the problem and the answer were both simple. The situation at cheese station C had changed. So Sniff and Scurry decided to change. They both looked out into the maze. Then Sniff lifted his nose, sniffed, and nodded to Scurry, who took off running through the maze, while Sniff followed as fast as he could. They were quickly off in search of new cheese. Later that same day, Hem and Haw arrived at Cheese Station C. They had not been paying attention to the small changes that had been taking place each day, so they took it for granted their cheese would be there. They were unprepared for what they found. What? No cheese? Hem yelled. He continued yelling, "No cheese, no cheese." As if shouted loudly enough, someone would put it back. "Who moved my cheese?" he howled. Finally, he put his hands on his hips. His face turned red, and he screamed at the top of his voice, "It's not fair! It's not fair!" Haw just shook his head in disbelief. Can you compare the same situation happening in our life? When we just keep shouting and yelling at others, we constantly blame our life for all the bad things happening to us, screaming and howling, "It's not fair, it's not fair. Why did this happen to me? While life is so hard on us, why is this happening to me always?" Just take a moment for yourself and think about it. Haw too counted on finding cheese at Cheese Station C. He stood there for a long time, frozen with shock. He was just not ready for this. Hem was yelling something, but Haw didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to deal with what was facing him, so he just tuned everything out. The little people's behavior was not very attractive or productive, but it was understandable. Finding cheese wasn't easy, and it meant a great deal more to the little people than just having enough of it to eat every day. Finding cheese was the little people's way of getting what they thought they needed to be happy. They had their own ideas of what cheese meant to them, depending on their taste. For some, finding cheese was having material things. For others, it was enjoying good health or developing a spiritual sense of well-being. For Haw, cheese just meant feeling safe, having a loving family someday, and living in a cozy cottage of Cheddar Lane. To Hem, cheese was becoming a big cheese in charge of others and owning a big house atop of Camembert Hill. Because cheese was important to them, the two little people spent a long time trying to decide what to do. All they could think of was to keep looking around Cheeseless Station C to see if this cheese was really gone. While Sniff and Scurry had quickly moved on, Hem and Haw continued to hem and haw. They ranted and raved at the injustice of it all. Haw started to get depressed. What would happen if the cheese wasn't there tomorrow? He had made future plans based on this cheese. The little people couldn't believe it. How could this have happened? No one had warned them. It wasn't right. It was not the way things were supposed to be. Hem and Haw went home that night, hungry and discouraged. But before they left, Haw wrote on the wall, "The more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. The more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it." It has a deep meaning if you understand. The next day, Hem and Haw left their homes and returned to Cheese Station C again, where they still expected somehow to find the cheese. The situation hadn't changed. The cheese was no longer there. The little people didn't know what to do. Hem and Haw just stood there, immobilized like two statues. Haw shut his eyes as tight as he could and put his hands over his ears. He just wanted to block everything out. He didn't want to know the cheese supply had gradually been getting smaller. He believed it had been moved all of a sudden. Hem analyzed the situation over and over, and eventually his complicated brain, with its huge belief system, took hold. Why did they do this to me? He demanded. What's really going on here? Finally, Haw opened his eyes, looked around and said, "By the way, where are Sniff and Scurry? Do you think they know something we don't?" So here's a question for you all. What do you think? Where is Sniff and Scurry? Where do they go? Let me know your answers in the comments below. So enjoy the next section of Who Moved My Cheese in the next audiopod. Keep listening.